Good morning. This is Ron. It is a little after 11 a.m. Sunday morning, so we're going to get started and see if we have any questions. On yesterday, we spoke about the Queen and the death of the Queen and went into the history of that a little bit, and most of our discussion was centered around that. Uh, we can see if we have any more questions. I think Pastor told me earlier that he got a text from someone who wanted to understand the spiritual nature of that whole event and what's taking place. And we went into that yesterday. Uh, and if anyone has any more information or you've seen anything in addition, uh, if please feel free. Otherwise, what I'd like to do is see if Pastor and Nick and Miss Barbara are on the phone because they uh, kind of gave us some insight into that. Yes, and George as well. So if you guys, any of you guys on the line, if you want to recap or talk about the spiritual nature of what took place or what is taking place right now, would you please help us out?
Hey, good morning. This is Nick. Yeah, I'm here.
Hey Nick, how you doing, man?
Good, good. But just to recap what we talked about, basically the death of the queen is symbolic of the transition away from a world that is dominated by white supremacy to one that is uh, organized by human beings in general. And the queen, who was, although she was sort of a female presence, was very much still a tool of the patriarchal sort of negative presence that seeks to uh, dominate everything that is not its. And they use that feminine sort of figurehead, or they use that feminine presence to mask their own more obvious brutality. And that's why I believe, similarly, there was just another woman elected to the position of prime minister in England, because the main sort of feminine mask that they were using is now gone. So they found another one. And what this means overall for all of us is that white supremacy is dying, and it's happening slower than we might wish, but it is unmistakable that the that the tide has already turned, and we are witnessing the sort of disintegration of the slow disintegration of the structures that white supremacy put in place in order to rule the world, essentially. And what will take its place is a structure that human beings, as a more collective body, create. And it will be, I believe, more organic, more beneficial, and it will not be about maintaining these useless hierarchies that are simply the product of ego and ignorance being forced on the world. So that, I think, is a basic recap of what we talked about yesterday.
Hey, this is Barbara. Thank you, Nick. The thing I would like to add to that is something that occurred since then, which was Meghan and Harry being invited to greet the people along with the rest of the quote unquote royals. And while this is simply, I think, something that was done as a way to ingratiate the people and to, kind of show them that they might be less divided than they think. They are divided, but unbeknownst to them, this is a signal that what Nick was saying is in process, even if they don't even realize it. And that is that there will be an embrace of all of those, Meghan, their children, Harry, as a symbolic gesture of what has to happen worldwide. And so while we're getting our quote unquote upheavals in terms of change in the United States, as we transition and are still in the process of transitioning during this last 4-year increment under the energy of Trumpism, England itself and the Europe itself will be going through the same kind of thing. And while the monarchy has been there for hundreds and hundreds of years, and there has been precise information, precise orchestration of what the monarchy does. And as Pastor said yesterday, the king can't even do anything unless his handlers read what he does. But that does not mean that beyond Charles, that there is still not that opportunity and that change that's growing underneath, not only from the people, but from agents of the monarchy themselves. And I'm not even saying William, because he's very much tied to his father. But what humans human beings who are part of the people will push forward is this change that we've been talking about worldwide, this change that we need to be human and we need to govern as humans. We need to love as humans, and we need to be kind to each other as humans. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Beautifully said. Anyone else? Anyone else want to follow up on this?
Yeah, good morning, Ron.
Yes, sir.
I just wanted to follow up in reference to, what has been said thus far. And I think yesterday we mentioned, just a little bit in reference to the divinity of the number 9. I only want to share because I know that we talked about what it represents in terms of a cosmic consciousness. And I think that, again, we're in a time now where things are being given to us, from that spiritual realm. And when we were talking about consciousness, I think that, again, us just being aware of the 4 grades of consciousness in terms of just our origin. And I think we have talked about, again, those who are unconscious, but at the same time, those who have, that simple consciousness in terms of our ancestors, but moving more into self-conscious in terms of what we know. And I think that what it really elevates to is our cosmic consciousness. And I think that's the point, where we're able to look at the divinity that's within us, the spirit that's within us. And I think that we're now able to, grasp in our spirits the discernment of being able to bring these things to the light. As you mentioned yesterday, that we're now able to, correct or be able to solve, just some of the challenges that are before us, and just being aware of it. So I just wanted to share that thought in reference to cosmic consciousness, because as someone mentioned in terms of organic life, we just need to see how it relates as so above, so below. I just wanted to share those thoughts.
Thank you, George. You made me think again about consciousness, and hopefully we can tie that in a few minutes as well. All 3 of you guys said something though that and we talked about this briefly on yesterday about the righteousness in searching for truth, that energy puts a lot of things in motion, and all the things that we talk about. I truly think it is enlightenment and truth that pushes these doors open. And we've been talking about this portal that of energy that is available to us. And you guys mentioned something. Nick started it, and Barbara said it as well. Have we given any thought to? I know we talk about love and truth and forgiveness, but exactly not shaping it. I guess maybe not it. What we want to see this look like. I mean, we're very much not only a part of this, but the catalyst behind it. How should this look? As far as truth is concerned, and Barbara mentioned from a human perspective being, which is really kind of answered it, but it just, I guess I'm saying this so that we can give that some thought in knowing that, as Nick pointed out, as slowly as this is happening, it may be more happening that is unseen than we know. So if indeed we are the catalyst, what should this appear as, or what should we see here? What do we expect from these efforts, this energy that is available to us? I don't even know if that's a fair question, but we're not passive anymore. We're not just standing by. And one of the things that I noticed, I was trying to think of an example in the scriptures where someone asked for something, and they, the one that first comes to mind is Habakkuk, and he feels the answer. He feels what is going to take place, or that something is going to take place, but actually he hasn't visualized anything. There's nothing that is changed. The Creator has answered him, but that is his visualization. And so as all these things are unfolding, what are we visualizing, if anything? Maybe it's too early to ask that.
I vision.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, George.
Go ahead, Pastor. Go ahead.
What I visualize is an upsurge in the manifestation of feminine authority. Normally, I would say feminine energy, but I'm talking about feminine authority that will bring balance to the earth. I think that the dethroning of the queen left a vacant seat to be filled by the energy that is antithetical to racism. The source of feminine energy was pushed away from the throne of the queen through racist measures. And in order to save his family, Harry simply left the country and withdrew himself and his family from all of the antics of the throne. And the rejection of that African feminine energy told the whole story about the roots of the throne as well as that of the Queen herself and all of those around her. Even though in that bloodline, there is an African woman, Queen Charlotte, who was born in Germany. And sat on the throne, I think, from until she died in 1818. So she's sometime in the 1700s. She became queen. And that was also against an uproar. That'd be an interesting story to read about how King George III lost his mind and how they made efforts to take the authority away from Queen Charlotte. So I think what's happening is history repeating itself and giving the throne opportunity to change his ways, and it didn't. It dug his heels in and fought harder to maintain the status of racism than it did to change anything. I also believe that we're going to wake up and we're going to see the advent of feminine energy almost overnight. If you think about what's happening in this country, the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs are African women. The depth of racism is rooted in Britain. And we're going to see the walls of colonialism begin to fall. And I don't mean simply by people making a decision they're going to rule themselves and go through the ceremony of separating themselves from England. I don't mean that at all. I mean totally separation simply by saying you're no longer welcome here. And the reason I say that is because even though the British leaves, they still control the natural resources. And once we see this change, we'll see the same change in this country as well. The November election is going to be the manifestation of the direction that we are headed in, or maybe I should say, will be a manifestation of where we are and what we have accomplished in terms of seeking to bring balance to this earth. So I'm not making any attempt to paint a picture of what the feminine energy is going to manifest, how it's going to do it. Neither am I making any effort to offer you a tapestry of how the feminine energy will weave the earth, the humanity together. The total fabric of humanity will change. How it looks, I don't know. Excuse me, but I know that it will change. We have never been at this point before where there has been a great opportunity to render racism and its proponents toothless and powerless. We are at that point now, and we can see it happening before our very eyes if we take the time to not only listen, but to see with our eye. And no matter what the European male says, it's over. No matter how the European male approaches it, it's over. And it's over because not only has the African awakened, but the European females have awakened as well. And with them being awakened, there is going to be a huge change. Thank you, unless there are questions.
Questions or comments, guys? Anybody?
Just a comment. This is Barbara. Um, One of the things that we hear nowadays is quote unquote woke. And what Pastor said reminded me that when we talk about awaken, we talk about enlightenment in a sense. We talk about a higher consciousness, as George and you talked about, Ron. Your cosmic consciousness is awakened. But we see that those who are fighting against this, and I'm not talking about people, I'm talking about energies, are calling wokeness, they're stigmatizing wokeness with negativity. And so we have to continue to, it's like they're trying to describe something that's enlightened in a way that's not. And so we have to continue to put in the macro and talk about and speak positively about being awakened and being
Would you mute,
enlightened.
Barbara, hold 1 second, please. Barbara, hold 1 second. Would you please mute your phone, please? Would you make sure that you're muted? Okay, Barbara, please.
So that when somebody calls something, and we know that we're talking about something that's more positive, more balanced, we have to stay the course in that. And if we stay the course, we will see that any kind of negative labels they try to attach to this change in humanity becoming a consciousness of love and caring for the whole and not just selfishness. Anytime we maintain our course in desiring balance, it doesn't matter how many times and in what venues they use these negative terms, they will not last. So, wokeness means awake. To me, that's being awake, knowing who you are, knowing your responsibility to yourself and to each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I think it was Barbara several months ago. We were talking about what it means to cultivate the ground. And I think we were even looking at the lesson on the vineyard and what the husbandman does, getting the ground ready for planting. And Barbara laid that out as the steps that the farmer goes through to get that done, get it ready, get the ground ready for seed. That there are several things, the turning of the soil and enriching the soil with, if needed, she could do that again for us. But the point I'm getting to is, we studied a while back. We took a look at Noah and the ties with Noah and the beginning is amazing to me. His being locked above the waters in that tight womb, if you will, with the animals, was an opportunity to address the characteristics of not anything external, but that which was internal, to look at those animalistic characteristics inside of him. And then he rides on top of the rain. It talked about it had not been a man to cultivate the ground, so it had not rained, but he not only experienced the rain, he prepared for the rain, and then he had opportunity to cultivate the ground. And instead of planting a seed that would enlighten mankind and raise that consciousness that we're speaking of, he decides to revert back to his selfishness, which was purely just a separation of self for his own pleasures. And so an opportunity missed. I look at us as not only cultivators, but we are the humans who recognize Elohim and recognize who we are, and that woke state, that conscious state that we are in, we are preparing to drop the seed in the soil. So I look at that and I think, you know, we have a say so in this. We have a stake in it. We have moved in this direction with purpose, and we are at that stage now. That's why just to verbalize it, where we are, to see where we are, and as Pastor said, not to shape it, but to follow the course in seeing and respecting truth and the feminine energy, as he said, and what's going to come out of this. This is going to be the new earth that the scriptures talk about. The new heavens and the new earth are being shaped as we speak, and I don't mean that arrogantly at all. I'm talking spiritually, that truth is going to prevail. This is going to look new, and this energy that is available has been opened by you and to be used by you, and we are going to see the results of this. And as we speak, we're already seeing it. The things we talk about are the changes that have already been manifested, so that we can stay the course. So your comment, appreciate it. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to add another layer to what you just said. I believe that the seed is already here, that we are the seed. Once we uncover who we are, once we recover who we are, once we know who we are that seed. And the words that we speak are and we've already cultivated the soil. When Pastor took us through the meditations previously, where we made a decision about what we wanted to see in terms of energies, not the outcome, not to shape particular physical things, but the spiritual kinds of things that we wanted to see, i.e. loving kindness, humanity knowing who it is as Elohim, and we wanted to know it by any means necessary. To me, that was cultivation of the spiritual soil. That was getting it ready. That was the seed of us as Elohim being planted into that spiritual soil. And so what grows may differ a little bit, just like what grows in the physical soil may differ a little bit, but it all works together for the good of humanity. How it's shaped may be a little different. It may be a little different in Gambia, a little different in Abu Dhabi, a little different in Europe, a little different in the United States. But the goal and what we desire is already cultivated in that spiritual soil. So I believe that the seeds and the soil has already been prepped and ready and planted.
Thank you.
I agree with
Thank you.
you, Robert.
Yeah.
I want to add something to that. The reason I see it so clearly, I suppose, is because we are at the place where we understand what Titus is talking about. To the pure, all things are pure. But to those who I'm not subject to change. I'm not subject to revision. Nothing is pure. But both their mind and their conscience are defiled, are impure. So I think that, I don't think, I know, that's what we are talking about right now. We are talking about how the mind and the consciousness was defiled with racism. We're talking about how, and I think Ron probably is going to get into this later, I'm not sure about today, but we're talking about how a religion was created for the purpose of enslavement. We're talking about the purity of the heart of those who seek harmony for humanity, who seek loving kindness and forgiveness and mercy. The pure in heart, the mind that is pure does not hold on to anything that is impure or anything that would defile it if it were to focus on it. So when Barbara talks about the soil having been cultivated, it has. And I would take it a step further, Barbara Jane, and say that not only has it been cultivated, but the purity of thought has already been sown in that cultivated soil. And we are beginning to see the growth of those seeds that were sown in that soil. And the growth of that is seen not so much by a plant pushing its way out of the ground, but it's seen by the removal of those things that would choke it out. And the things that would choke it out and refuse to allow it to grow are the tentacles of colonialism, imperialism, racism, and all the other isms that have been the forces that have beset the forward movement of humanity. Thank you.
You just reminded me of the portion that I forgot, and I'm only going to mention this because you guys have pretty much summed this up. Just to put it in the macro, put the words out there. When I talk about he had opportunity to change the nature or the characteristics of the animals, that has been done too. That has been done by us. The ferociousness of racism and all those isms that we talk about, all those things are when the new human, when mankind wakes up and see his humanity, all those isms will be diminished. The ferociousness of it, the greed and the terror and the rage and the fear that they bring, people won't have to fear anymore. So all these things are coming to pass as we speak. So yeah, I just want to put that out there and agree with what everybody said already.
I have a question. Is this
Okay.
kind of like the year of Jubilee for mankind?
I do believe it's the year of Jubilee, but not in the literal sense of it. And what I mean by the literal sense of it, we're not counted in terms of calendar years. We are talking about it in the way that it was meant, and that is as an allegory. Year simply denotes time. So this is our period of Jubilee in that we are seeing the rapidity of the removal of the rulers who have kept racism intact, have kept misogynism intact for all of these years, especially when we look at the Caucasian woman, because she's began to realize she was never included in the Constitution, as were not the people of color as well. She's beginning to realize that she has always been a pawn in the game that was played by Caucasian males.
So So she was just property, just like they treated, I guess. Well, yeah, were they not treated like property too, like the Africans were?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your question. Anyone else? Anything else that grabbed your attention? Is there anyone who may have further questions about the monarchy and the effects that it has had on the earth, especially Europeans? Is there anything else that anyone want to ask?
Ron,
And
before you go there,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
have in Titus 16, we talked about in 15 those who appear, all things appear to the pure, defiled, all things are defiled, and nothing is pure to those who are defiled. But in 16 it says that they profess to know God, so they're speaking it with the word, the natural word. Hello.
Yes,
They're
I'm listening.
They're speaking with the natural words, but spiritually, those natural words are dead because nothing has come alive except abomination, disobedience, meaning everything that's happening all over the world and in the church even that's being brought to light. Everybody has professed that, I love God and I know God, and conservative Christians are saying lots of things about God wants us to take care of these unborn babies, blah, blah, blah. Whatever the reason, it doesn't matter. My point is, we can say whatever we want and call it God, but what speaks very loudly is what we do in terms of acting on and acting in accordance with what Elohim would do. And that's what's not being done. We're saying one thing and doing another. So it says that they're found worthless as to every good work, but there is no good work if you are if you're acting from the heart of a child's mind and not the heart of one who's Elohim. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's what Barbara was alluding to when I said a religion that was brought into existence to justify slavery. That's Christianity. And I think probably Ron go further with that, but that's what this scripture is really talking about. When you talk to that 16th verse, is speaking to those who profess to know God, meaning that those who have created a religion for the benefit of themselves and for the humanizing of everyone who do not look like them, and to the detriment of the resources of the earth, to the detriment of the earth itself, and all of it has its roots and tentacles in Christianity. Christianity is the most dangerous concept on this earth, and the reason I speak of it the way I do is because Christianity has resulted in enslaved people enslaving themselves to the Christianity based upon what they have been told the scripture is saying. The book that was written to bring harmony to the earth warned us against those who would bring into existence concepts that were contrary to what the book is teaching. And the most dangerous contrary concept is Christianity, because it has been used not only to enslave people of color, but it also has been used to steal everything that the Caucasian male could steal and to kill everyone who stood in his way.
Pastor and Barbara, before we go further, I want to introduce something because I think Jackie may have brought up Romans 1 because you guys just explained this as well. And I'm going to ask you, not just you two, but anyone else who wants to speak to this, to tie this into what you just said. I'm looking at Romans 1 and 25. But they exchanged the truth. I'm going to go up one verse. I'm going to Romans chapter 1. I'll read verses 24 and 25 and ask you to bring this into what you just said. Therefore, God gave them over into the lust of their hearts to impurity, that their body might be dishonored among them. But they exchanged the truth of God for a lie and worship and serve the creature rather than the Creator, who is blessed forever. And so that's Romans. And I think you just spoke to this, both of y'all did actually, but do you want to kind of tie that in to what you said, what's been said so far?
I think it's pretty much
Same
self-explanatory
thing,
in
yeah.
that, yeah, but Bob Jean, go.
No, I was going to let you go ahead, Pastor. I was going to say the same thing. Exchanging the truth for a lie. There are many people who know what the truth is. We all were created from the same breath, with the same Creator. So we have that. We have that, the breath within us. We've just chosen not to feed it. In other words, we were given just consciousness, a conscience in the physical being, and that conscience mirrors a spiritual truth, and that conscience tells us right from wrong, and still we will not even listen from a physical perspective. We will not even listen to the truth, and so we've made decisions to do things our own way, for our own good, for ourselves alone, and everybody else be damned. Let them pull their own selves up by their own bootstraps, not remembering that you took my opportunity to have boots, let alone the bootstraps. And so what Pastor was talking about, I believe, is that religion has created around itself all of these lies that would make people of like mind think they're the truth. Just like, that's why it's so easy to dupe trumpeters. They believe in the entity, the man, not the energy behind it. Because if they believed in the energy behind the man, that means they would have to see the energy in themselves and know that the truth of the energy within themselves is not aligned with that kind of energy. And so I think we've talked about it. So yeah, that's what we're seeing now. People are doing anything and everything they want to do. But it is us who know who we are, who know not to get distracted by all that stuff. Because they use that as a means to distract and pull other people away from trying to understand who they are, uncover who they are, know who they are. And everything that's done talks about, changing the glory of the incorruptible God to the likeness and image of the corruptible man. Isn't that what has happened? Literally, physically, from the energy of a trumpeter, changing the energy of the incorruptible man and likening it to that of an incorruptible God, and likening it to the image of corruptible man. So without saying any more, I think this Romans 1:24-25 worked very well with Titus to explain exactly what it is that we see and the distractions that are trying to take us away from continuing on the path that we've chosen.
Thank you. Yes, I agree. I think. Yes, sir.
Now, I was just going to say in reference to Romans 1:25, I think again in terms of how Jesus, spoke about the importance of the incorruptible, coming to the corruptible. I mean, the incorruptible to the corruptible. Jesus was not necessarily so much stressing the importance of people's sins. He was basically trying to emphasize the good that resides in people. But it's just that when people, engage in sin, he was just simply telling them to not sin again. So again, we have the opportunity of, being able to move, from sin to sinless in a sense that we're able to learn from it. But it wasn't, again, so much that Jesus, was emphasizing sin, but just talked about the importance of the good in you and making that change. You know what I mean? And being able to realize that you don't have to do it again. So people who are in that mindset that they have the opportunity, as Barbara has so graciously and elegantly said in the past, about loving kindness, about the importance of forgiveness, and realizing our purpose in terms of helping humanity. So I kind of looked at that scripture in a way that we all, may have done things, but we have an opportunity to change. And so Jesus is not looking at it to continually condemn us, but he's saying just, if you can, do not sin again. I don't know if that captures some of what Romans 1:25 was talking about, but that's what I kind of saw in my reading. I'm done. Unless there's any comments.
Hey, yeah. One of the most corrupted ideas that comes out of the purposeful negative interpretation of any books in the Bible by people who are using those books to consolidate their own power. One of the most corrupted ideas is the idea that sin is whatever that is, which is not understood within a religious context, but sin is something that condemns you permanently and in and of itself. And I don't know if we've ever dealt directly with the idea that punishment from sin and something like eternal punishment in hell is a complete fabrication by the Roman sort of imperial church, and is in direct contradiction to the actual message, which is that the thing that saves you from sin is your own ability to recognize your own spiritual nature. And it is not something that condemns you forever, and is not something that results in you being condemned by some outside force. It is rather a internal condition that produces a internal chaos as well as external chaos that we have to learn how to stop reproducing. And that's a whole nother conversation in and of itself, but I just wanted to point that out as an example of the way in which the spiritual message and spiritual intent is corrupted and turned into a threat and used for coercion. But I'm done.
Thank you, Nick. I'm sorry, y'all. I dropped that. Zoom dropped me, and I just got back in, so I missed most of what you and George said. But I'm sure it tied in to where we're right now.
No problem.
Is there any?
Pastor
Um,
Richard, yeah, I was gonna say, I think you muted yourself, but go ahead.
Oh, yeah, we were, when you were talking about sin, Nick, I looked at it beyond what we had seen, being an entanglement, and understanding that the foundational meaning of the whole concept of sin is simply being out of rhythm with the universe. That's it. And there is no mention of what happens in terms of an eternal punishment or condemnation for being out of rhythm. Because if you're out of rhythm, that simply means that you can get back in rhythm if you choose to. The punishment is trying to live with yourself once you begin to realize who you are in regards to what you've done or said in the past.
I absolutely agree. And that is something that is purposefully kept out of the religious interpretation of everything that is in those books. And at some level, it's the Catholic Church who's responsible for this kind of interpretation. And at some level, they already know that their interpretation is not in line with the original intent. But because their purpose is to use it for consolidation of people's attention and consolidation of people's energy and their own power, they allow it to continue because it is useful to them.
I found an article in National Geographic. I love National Geographic, and when I don't get the articles, I save them and read them when I get a chance. And this is one that's over a month old, so I apologize to you for that. My logic is if I haven't read it, it's still news. So I don't know if any of you guys have seen this, but I'd like to share it with you. This is an article National Geographic says, will the Pope invoke the doctrine of discovery? And I'm going to read part of it too, and then it's kind of a lengthy article, so I'll read part of it, and then I'll kind of point out some parts of it. It says, for centuries, European monarchs have used a 1493 Vatican decree, 1493 Vatican decree to brutally colonize Native Americans. In Canada, more than 100,000 First Nation children were forced to attend residential schools that stripped them of their indigenous identities and attempted to convert them to Christianity. Indigenous communities are asking Pope Francis, visiting Canada this week, to do more than apologize for abuse of their people under Catholic authority. They want Francis to revoke the church's hate doctrine of discovery, already repudiated by the United Church of Christ and branches of the
Ron Johnson. Take your time, man.
Yes, sir. Okay. Let me go back a little bit. They wanted Francis to rebuke the church's hated doctrine of discovery, already repudiated by the United Church of Christ and branches of the Methodist, Episcopal, and Mennonite churches. These religious ideas became the fundamental building and manifesting that we are dealing with today, wrote Syracuse University professor. Let me go skip to, because it's a little lengthy. But what it explains to me, this 500-year-old decree. Because so what happened was, if you notice, in basically what it's saying is this happens in 1493. As you back up a year, 1492 is when Columbus, quote unquote, discovered America. So that news, when it hit Europe, it became a celebration. The decree was made that all nations were civilized had the right to go and they find the word they use. And they called them barbaric nations, and even to it was said to even by force capture them and turn them into Christians. So just point out to me, and I'm trying to find some of the words how they use this. Let me see. The doctrine had this root in the earth of the age of exploration. Throughout the 15th century, the Roman Catholic Church responded to European Catholic nations' ambition to explore and colonize other regions. In a series of as the Pompostate Bulls, popes gave these nations the right to take control of other lands, subdue the people who already lived there, and convert them to Christianity. It talked about, and it goes in to talk about the true the purpose of Columbus is a voyage, but once he Americas, it's a different opportunity. Everything's going to change. So it just, what it points out to me is Christianity was never had anything at all to do with God. It had everything to do with capturing other lands, subduing its people, and turning them into controllable people that you could exploit and use for gain. So God was nowhere mentioned anywhere in this document. And this dates back over 500 years. So
Hey,
I just
Ron,
thought that was kind of, yes, sir.
I could be wrong, of course, but we need to be careful, don't we? That I think what I understand is in the first 100 years or so, the church was much more, heterogeneous, a mix, and if you want, free and maybe spiritual. But when it was taken over, particularly with the Council of Nicaea, et cetera, in that era, then you have the Christian church really choosing the course of empire over the doctrine that Jesus spoke about. So I think we need to make a distinction between the origins and the original, I guess you could say, intent and spirit, as opposed to what became of its co-opting, and certainly the way it's functioned since. And obviously there are books and everything else written about where that's taken us to all that we're talking about in terms of racism and all of that. And anyway, I just want to make that small point. I don't think it started out quite that way, but maybe then historians don't want to call it a church. It didn't need to be, I guess. It was an amalgam of beliefs and practices and groups. And then as happens too often in cultures, things get sort of taken over, simplified, and then they go a certain direction. But I'm not arguing the fact that, that first papal bull, which I think actually goes to Pope Nicholas, but it doesn't matter. In 1450 something, gave license to everything that's come since. Anyway, that's just a small.
So I would assume then what you're saying is prior to this year that I read, 1492, 1493, the intentions of the church were something different than what, because this kind of
No, I'm saying you got to go back before the council and all that. I'm just saying, I think when the spiritual understanding of Jesus, the teachings of Jesus were spreading and being understood, you can call that a church or not, but it wasn't organized in the sense that we call it that. And then, of course, we know the history that's just been rife with who's controlling what attitude, what view, etc., ultimately culminating in the development of the position of Pope and the ability of the Pope to declare what's truth and what isn't. And then what he did by freeing the European powers. Don't forget, Spain and Portugal, and the Brits, they did a pretty decent job of butchering up the other continents. But yeah, it gave license to that. But there was, I'm just arguing on behalf of the beginning, the faiths in the early beginnings, the sense of connection to what was the spiritual message that Jesus brought. And of course, how it got overtaken and quote unquote institutionalized. Anyway,
Yeah,
that's a small point.
You're talking about before Constantine.
Yeah.
Constantine was
Yeah,
the first quote unquote leader of the Roman Empire, Pope.
well,
whatever.
yeah, I guess we give him credit as being the first one who saw the political advantage of co-opting the church, so to speak. And
Yeah,
setting
and Constantine was nearly 1,000 years before
The Pope.
1493.
right, but even that was
The
500 and something. So you had several hundred years in the beginning, so to speak, after the passing of Jesus, where people were struggling with how to interpret and live by what they understood, and it eventually got overtaken, co-opted and overtaken, and we've been living the results since. It's not didn't need to be said, I guess.
I think it needed to be said. And I listen to what you and Audrey were saying. It was actually the Catholic bishops who went to Constantine and joined forces with him to quote unquote Christianize the world. He was going to be the force that they were going to use to force people to comply to the beliefs of the Catholic Church. Now, when Jesus was teaching, Jesus was not teaching Christianity at all. Matter of fact, Christianity was not even in existence until Catholicism brought it into existence. What Jesus was teaching was no different than what the other prophets taught. And that was, we've gotten off course, we don't realize who we are, and this is how we get back to where we were created to be. And keep in mind also that during the course of Jesus' teachings, he was teaching under the occupation of the Romans in Palestine. And the Romans at that time, being occupiers, excuse me, saw the Palestinians as being beneath them. And Christianity to this day has grown to a place where they despise the Palestinian and they embrace the Jew that does not even exist. There is no such thing as a race of Jews, or there's no such thing as Jewish people. The Bible does not speak of Jews. It speaks of Judea or Judeans. And during the period of Jesus, it was the Judeans of which they spoke. Jesus' teachings was simply a reminder of what we were told under the Old Testament law, what we call the 10 utterances. Had nothing to do with a church, had nothing to do with Christianity at all. The doctrine of Christianity is no different than the doctrine of manifest destiny. The only difference that I would say is manifest destiny spoke more to this nation and the pillaging of it. And the doctrine of Catholicism pillaged the whole world and forced it to come under their domination, which was really softening them up for the European armies or the Crusaders to go in and force compliance. Thank you. Unless there are questions.
Well, I appreciate everybody's input. This will be a very interesting study to see the history of Christianity and Catholicism and the early stages of it and how it became known by what we see today. As the article points out, certainly within the last 500 years or so, it has found its way to being a weapon to control and to herd people and to sort of take land, if you will, and again, the word being control. So yeah, be a study, I guess, to look into that to see how this thing got off course, if it was ever really on course. But just to see what we got to where we're at.
Interesting, Pastor. Sorry, Ron, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was just going to tie it to what we read today in Romans and in Titus. It certainly sounds like some portion of, and not to say that those scriptures are speaking primarily from a Christian religion, but it certainly sounds like it fits the description that is being described there.
I just thought it was interesting when Pastor said the bishops went to Constantine. That sounds kind of like the evangelicals going to Trump, flocking to Trump, because they used this corrupt person to further their agenda. But I don't understand how they could feel like they weren't being culpable in that corruption. It's crazy.
Yeah, and also, Audrey, there was one of the bishops who had his disagreement in terms of what the popes was bringing to. What the bishop was bringing to the pope. There was one who was not in agreement with that, and he had to leave, his status, to a certain extent, because of his indifferences. So even there were some of the bishops who had some questions about, Constantine's his authority. I'm trying to think about, the word, but more importantly, I think that this all ties in, with Ron, you bring it, to our awareness when you talked about the prophet Habakkuk. And when we say how Elohim answers the prophet, Ron, that particular vision that you spoke of earlier, I just didn't want to lose that because I thought that was an important, subject or scripture that you brought up in reference to him. And if I may, Ron, and I just want to read it because I think that it definitely helps us to be aware of the signs and times that we're in. And in Habakkuk chapter 2, verses 1 through 3, it says, I will stand on my guard post and station myself on the rampart, and I will keep watch to see what he will speak to me and how I may reply when I am reproved. It says, then the Lord answered me and said, record the vision and inscribe it on tablets that the one who reads it may run. For the vision is yet for the appointed time, passing towards the goal, and it will not fail. Though it tarries, wait for it, for it will certainly come, and it will not be delayed. And it just made me think about in terms of what you're saying, just us being on post, being aware, because we're getting, revelation, we're getting the substance of what we need, from the Creator. And then at the same time, again, as I say, Elohim answers the prophet. And so with history, I truly believe spirituality existed before religion, and we're constantly still in this discussion that I think helping us to see it more clearly. I just wanted to share those thoughts, Ron, in reference to Habakkuk. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Good morning, everyone. One of the things that Reverend Richard alluded to early, and I wish we would give it a little bit more attention, what Constantine did. From what little I know, Constantine had a dream, and in his dream, in this sign we are conquer is what manifest destiny comes from. And I forgot how it's said. It's in hoc, whatever it says, it means in this sign we conquer. And this is where we get the manifest destiny from. And someone help me. Constantine's dream came before the Nicene Creed, or did the Nicene Creed come before Constantine and separated God into three and said he was raised on the third day and December 25th? Is that the order, Reverend Richard, or someone, the Constantine and Manifest Destiny came before the Nicene Creed, or did the Nicene Creed come before Manifest Destiny?
I don't
Hello?
know, George.
Go ahead.
Reb, or whoever was responding to me, you broke up. Or I broke up one.
The Nicene Creed came before. And if you remember the Nicene Creed, what it was about was the Catholics at that time were loosely organized. And the organization of the Catholics had very little to do with what the Bible actually was saying. They did not understand it as they confiscated the scrolls that they could get their hands on. And after the Nicene Creed, what they did, they chose the books that were going to be in what we call the Bible, which simply means books. They chose those scrolls. And the way they did it is that one of the bishops, there were a group of bishops rather in this room going through the scrolls, and they were determining what was going to be official. And they removed the Book of Mary, the Book of Thomas, everything that was deeply spiritual, they removed it. And that which they could not manipulate. So they could not come to a final decision. So they left and said they would pray about it. Only one had a key. And they made a decision that the ones that were not to be accepted would be on the floor. And when they went back into the room as a group the next day, that's what happened. And we all know what happened with that. Anyway, once they consolidated those books, Constantine, they collaborated with Constantine because Constantine had a dream that he was the conqueror of the world. And they got Constantine to convert to quote unquote Christianity. And yet Constantine did not want to be baptized at that point. He wanted to be baptized just before death so he could make it into heaven. And that's the heaven that they meaning the Catholics, had created. And it was during that period that Roman Catholicism joined forces with Constantine in order to foster the growth of their beliefs and to conquer the world along with Constantine. The Catholic Church did not conquer the world to force people to believe in Jesus. They forced people to believe in Jesus in order to control them so that they could take their wealth away from them. The reason the Catholic Church to this day is the richest institution on the face of the earth is because of what they stole beginning during the days of the Crusades. And the Crusaders were the armies of Constantine and other subsequent armies going forward. If you read the history of Catholicism or read Roman Catholicism, it's a book called Roman Catholicism, you not only will you see this, but you see how over the years they manipulated things in order to control people, like the confessional, that kind of thing. George, when you talk about Manifest Destiny, it was, I don't doubt that it was based upon that, but Manifest Destiny was a document or doctrine that granted permission to the people in this country to pillage the whole land, meaning that the earth belonged to them and it did not belong to the Native Americans. And they were able to do whatever it took for them to push west into other lands and to take control of them. So you cannot separate Catholicism from Manifest Destiny. You cannot separate the pillaging of the earth from Catholicism or from Christianity. There's an African proverb that says that when they came to our land, they told us to close our eyes and pray, meaning the Christians. They came as missionaries and told us to close our eyes and pray. And when we opened our eyes, they had stolen everything that we had. And that's a proverb, but it's true. That's what happened. Not only did it happen in Africa, but it happened all over the world. And if you look at how Hawaii was taken, how Puerto Rico was taken from Spain, if you look at the methodology, you can trace it all the way back to Constantine and the Catholic Church. Prior to Constantine and the Catholic Church, it was simply a way of life. As a matter of fact, it was the Muslims who protected those who they called Christian. They didn't call themselves Christians. They called themselves people of the way. People of the way, what way? People who were following the way of the teachings of Yeshua. That's what they call themselves. They did not call themselves Christians until the Catholic applied that label. And when the Catholics applied the label Christian, they also applied the label Islam to the Muslims. Prior to that, they were simply talking about those who obey God and those who submit to God, as opposed to being a labeled religion. Buddhism was labeled by Christian Catholics. So all of these religions were labeled by them. And the reason they labeled them when they did and the way they did is to treat them as the other and to justify calling them barbarians, pagans, because you don't believe what I believe, you are a barbarian. That is no different than the evangelical church is today. It has joined forces with the US government. And in doing so, it ended up telling a woman, you have no rights that a man is obligated to respect, no different than the Dred Scott decision of 1856. So right now we are living during the period of Catholicism and the Catholicism joining forces with Constantine. The history, it repeats itself until someone does something to change it. And the changing of history repeating itself has nothing to do with being more greedy or vicious or violent than those before you. It has everything to do with bringing the truth to the forefront and trusting the universe to bring balance and holding fast to what the teachings really are, as opposed to exchanging a lie for the truth, exchanging the truth for a lie. If you read the whole scripture that talks about change the truth for a lie, it also speaks to the results of that. It causes, it speaks to the idea of men searching for men, women searching for women. This has nothing to do with homosexuality. This is an allegory that speaks about the bastardizing of the energies of this earth that are supposed to come together as one to bring harmony to the earth. If there are questions or comments, I'll address them. Thank you. George, I hope that helped.
George, are you still there?
Yeah. It was a lot, but I just want to know which came first, the Nicene Creed, Constantine, or was it Constantine, then the Nicene Creed? That's all I want to know. Thank you, though.
I understand it. The whole since Ray brought that out.
Okay. Thank you, Charles. Anyone else? And again, these discussions are appreciated and necessary. That's part of the enlightenment that we are seeking. That's part of what we see, and the uncovering of truth is what we're about. That's what we're doing. So please keep your questions and comments coming. Is there anything else? Anyone
One
else?
thing.
Yes, sir.
Can Ray talk about when he said the people of the way? Because we've been taught, they taught it was Christians. I just want to learn a little bit more about the people of the way.
Pastor.
The proper translation, the proper translations for the followers of what was translated as the church is the people of the way, and it was simply speaking to the things that Jesus, following the principles that Jesus taught. It was the people of the way of Jesus, or people who followed the teachings of Jesus. That's all they were. It was just as simple as that. Please keep in mind, if you study the history of religions, what you will find is that every single religion that has been labeled was labeled through quote unquote Christianity, or the European understanding or interpretation of what spirituality is, because they didn't understand it. They just interpreted it the way they wanted it to be and pulled parts out that were really the spiritual aspects of what it really represents. So Charles is no different than us saying that we are spiritualists. We are not a Baptist. We're not a Christian. We are spiritual. It's no different than that.
Gotcha.
Does that help you, Charles?
Yes, sir. That helped.
Anyone else?
Yes, I just want to add, as soon as you give a name to the method by which you seek enlightenment, you run the risk of creating a new religion. There can be no one name for the path that you travel if you are seeking to know yourself and seeking to evolve yourself spiritually. There are as many paths, and there would be as many names for that path as there are people. So that is one of the reasons that the original translation of the way was so, perhaps it seems vague, but it was intentionally not to give it a label that could be sort of misconstrued as the one and the only way. It's very similar to, yeah, it's very similar to over in China. If you are familiar with the Tao Te Ching, which is a very sort of spiritual book, but the main sort of path in that tradition is also called the Way. It is a translation that I think is similar across spiritual traditions, because they recognize that there can be no named thing, because it's, if you name a thing, then you have placed boundaries upon it. You have colored it with your own intellect and in some way your own ego. Anyway, I just wanted to point that out because it's how the psychological sort of foundation of religion is formed. It is the imposition of ego, essentially, and the imposition of your own definition onto something, as opposed to allowing that thing to show you what it is without the need to try to box it in that sense.
Thank you, Nick.
So-
Very good. Yeah. Go ahead.
So
I'm
you
sorry.
saying that's why God, when Moses asked God who I will say that sent me, he said, I am that sent me. So that's what you're saying.
In that instance and multiple other instances where it mentions the I am, it is similar, but that is speaking more specifically to the spiritual source of that path. So the path that can be referred to as the way leads to the I am, that we is. That is why one of the other sort of purposefully corrupted translations of what is in the New Testament is when Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. And then the religion of Christianity says, okay, that means Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. Everything else is evil and should be destroyed. Jesus was specifically saying to seek the I am is the way. The way is through the seeking of the I am that you are. And this is true regardless of whatever spiritual tradition you come from, wherever in the world. It is the nature of your conscious self that you are. That when you seek internally to know that self, that you walk the path of the way. Thank you.
Very well said. I like that. I like that. The I am, seeking that part of you, that is the way. The conscious self. I like that. Very good. Anyone else? We have covered a lot today. Little after 12:30. Is there anything else to bring our attention? If not, we can reconvene tomorrow at 6. Is there anything else? Anything else you'd like to bring up today? Questions? Okay. Very good. Very good lesson. Very good discussion. All the questions and comments were appreciated. I hope everybody got something from it. And like someone did yesterday that said, Pastor, a text, if there's something that's not clear to you, send one of us a text or a question, and we'll pick up there tomorrow. We'll begin with that tomorrow, okay? But I hope
I have a quick question. Pastor, tomorrow, could you go a little more in depth about the Queen Elizabeth? Because I've heard some people had sort of negative comments when they spoke of her death. I don't know how she came about, her coming queen and all this other stuff. back in history, but yeah, could you go in depth on that situation?
Yes,
Okay, appreciate it.
No, thank you. That's where we'll begin tomorrow. Okay. Was there someone else? Okay. Well, I
let
hope
me
everyone
leave you
has.
with, let me leave with this, Ron.
Yes, sir.
This discussion about the transition of the Queen, right? It has deeper spiritual implications than we realized. And the reason I say that is because no matter how much we've spoken in terms of how it relates to us spiritually, to mankind, there are other questions about it, and there is more to be said about it. I just came across an article today that spoke about the millenniums of the countries that Britain colonized, and how they see her as being the last vesture of imperialism and colonization just today. So most definitely, I do think that we should dig a little deeper into understanding the implications of this. Thank you, sir. Thank all of you.
Appreciate it.
Okay. Okay. Well, we'll have something to begin with tomorrow. And again, if that's all of our questions and comments, I hope you have a great day. Look forward to tomorrow afternoon. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Ron.
Thank you.
All right,
Thanks,
see you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Everybody have a good afternoon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.